voices tonight. All kinds of wonderful things. Thanks so much for coming. I know you gotta go. Thanks so much for coming in, both of you. Yeah, don't forget that one.
Thank you.
Don't forget your water bottle. That's a sweet water bottle. Someone will take that home.
Well, I will now.
Okay.
Thank you
It's mine. All right, thank you so much. So the next person is Mr. Harvey Schwartz. Harvey, come on up.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone for being here. This is a fresh poem that I wrote this morning. Ode to Peace. I read a dialogue between two Africans in some town, in some country that most of us couldn't find on a map. One of them asked the other how the world could just ignore what was happening. Why doesn't someone help us? The other one said, we don't have oil. They don't care about us. I told this story to a Park Service worker at the Martin Luther King Memorial in Washington, D.C. last spring. She told me that she was originally from Somalia. She looked at me with deep, knowing eyes and said, we're better off to not have oil. Look at what happened in Iraq. And I look back to college years and the Vietnam War and the draft lottery that all guys faced. I see images of huge marches in D.C. I once walked in a long, silent procession, all carrying candles. And when I reached the lawn of the White House, I blew out my candle and yelled the name that I carried on a piece of cardboard around my neck, and threw the name onto the lawn. The name of someone, probably about my age, that had died in the war. I remember the smell of tear gas. It was another time in the Capitol. We stood in a park listening to speakers. Suddenly there were hundreds of faceless soldiers marching towards us. We couldn't see their eyes through the dark plastic masks. They carried bayonets. Someone put a flower in one. Helicopters hovered overhead. Billy said, if we don't stand up to them now, when will we? I ran. And there was a fancy circular hotel nearby. I escaped the fumes by running inside. There were people in suits and assorted other dressy clothes watching the spectacle through large glass windows. And no one kicked me out. Beneath the bell-bottoms and red headband and army jacket with peace signs, they could see that I was really one of them. And last night I saw Captain Phillips in the theater. Africans who had no choice were the bad guys. They considered themselves farmers of the sea, and our greed was the crop, floating by, and the equivalent of our mayors told them to become pirates or starve. Captain Phillips asked one of his captors why he didn't do something else. And he replied, maybe there are choices in America. I wrote a letter in the Western Front during the Second Iraqi War. I was a little self-righteous, saying, why aren't you taking to the streets? But if I'm really honest, I see the truth of the Vietnam protests. I realized that a big part of the push to protest was the draft. None of us wanted to go to Vietnam. And I realized how much fun the parties and protests were. The powers that be are smarter now. They have found that poverty for the masses provides plenty of young people with so few options that signing up seems attractive. also increases corporate profit. And I ponder the founding of our country, how we were sea pirates, how we sold land and a culture, how the logic of the treaties that we forced on the tribes was really not any different than the step-by-step humiliation and then death that the Nazis wreaked on the Jews. Tonight is Kristallnacht, and many of the dictatorships that we've supported in South America and elsewhere in the world have done the same thing. And we like to think that we're bringing democracy to the downtrodden. And we like to think that there is altruism in our actions. And sometimes there is. But how often are we there with nothing to gain? And I consider the wedding of our foreign policy and the corporate war machines that spit out weapons and plant them like crops around the planet while chugging our economy along. And I ponder what we can do. Here we stand, a handful of us, in a church on a November day in a distant corner of an expansive country. I don't have the answers, but I know a good place to start. We can be honest with ourselves. Thank you.